Welcome, everybody, to the Intentional Success webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about the complete small business. Before we get any further along, I've got to pause and thank sponsors, because sponsors are actually what makes this possible. Not only is this a labor of love from a time standpoint, there are some costs involved, and the great folks at Nationwide Video have been very generous over the past couple of years, sponsoring AV Matters, helping make sure that we can get the newsletter out, do webinars and things like this, and also AV Stummful USA, great event and screen support folks, Flex Rental Solutions, Digital Projection, one of my oldest, dearest industry friends, Complete Crewing, likewise, DWP Rents, and then, of course, the Stimson Group, the founder of Intentional Success, also helps sponsor this. That's how I get to be here. So thank you, everybody, for your support. For those you don't know, I am Tom Stimson. I'm president of the Stimson Group. For the past 11 years, and it has now been 11 years, I've been consulting to the AV industry, giving advice, working on projects, spreading the gospel that knowledge about business is important as knowledge about AV. So I hope that if you're new to us, that you will continue to take advantage of all the free content that we put out there. And if you ever need help with your business, you know where to find me. So without further ado, let's get right into it, because like I said, I'm excited about today's topic. There's a lot of great things that I want to share with you. This has been a couple of years in the making. I first formulated this, the outline for today's presentation, and then I realized, about 2 years ago, and then I realized I needed to do a lot of foundational work before I could present this. So while it'd be lovely if you've watched every webinar I've ever done, I will cite a couple of important webinars later on in today's broadcast to help you get caught up and learn more about the approach that I'm talking about today. So we'll talk about we're going to talk about business evolution. We're going to talk about the stages of business that you're in on the way to being the complete small business. Okay. We'll talk about what being complete feels like. You know, what's the vibe? How do things get done in companies that have all this stuff working and hitting on all cylinders? And then we're going to talk about how to move from one stage of evolution to the next, because most of us aren't at that complete stage. We're somewhere along the journey, maybe have our feet in 2 or 3 stages at the same time, and we need to figure out how we can move forward, and that'll make more sense as I get through this presentation. Now, where do I start? Intentional success is part of my brand. It's something that I talk about, something I firmly believe in. And when it comes to the complete small business, I find that there are 3 high-level strategic things that we need to do in order to start our journey to be a complete small business and really be successful. And it's very simple. We need to have clear goals. Big surprise there. We need to have well-defined customers, and we need to have the right tools and resources. And these 3 things together are what allow us to do all the things we need to do to be a wonderful small business. This is what allows us to achieve intentional success. There's a lot of parts and pieces behind these. This is 80,000-foot view, right? But let's think about this. If you don't have well-defined customers, you're going to waste an awful lot of energy chasing businesses that is not going to let you reach your goals. If you don't have the right tools and resources in play, if you don't have access to the right things, okay, then you won't have the means to grow and profit from your clear goals and well-defined customers. And if you don't have the goals, if you've not taken the fundamental step of defining where you're going, then you're going to wander. And that's where most of us seem to be. We seem to be wandering around, trying new things, wondering about stuff, and maybe some of us have just given up and we're just sticking with what we got without understanding what we could be doing. So keep these ideas in mind, keep the goals in mind, and the customers in mind, and the tools and resources in mind as the components of intentional success as we talk today about the complete small business. Now, there's 4 stages of business evolution that I'm going to explore today. And we've talked about these before in some of my writings, some of my videos, probably some of my webinars, but I want to revisit them in depth today because they are the essence of what we're trying to understand about what a really cool business to own and operate and work in looks like. The first level, the first stage of business, and many of us have been there, some of us more than once, is that startup phase. I call it the beta phase. In the beta phase of business, we have a proof of concept. We're trying to, just get the basics done. We want to get paid. We want to pay others. We're going to, find some work. We're going to put some groceries on the table, and then we're going to do it again. We're going to prove ourselves as we're starting to build the business. I'll talk about the elements of this a little bit more. The second stage of evolution is what I call 1.0. Surprise, it's fundamentals. It's mastering the basics, okay? Financials, pricing, workflow, processes, trying to do things more consistently, fundamental stuff. 2.0 is when we start thinking in terms of intentional outcomes. We start taking the fundamentals and we create new combinations, and we use the things that we know to do budgeting, to do planning, to create strategy so that we have some control over where we're going. So we're setting goals, we're setting targets, and we're working towards them. And then 3.0 is the intentional success stage. This is the grand master of business operators. They have full control over the trajectory of their business. If they choose to do something, they have all the parts and pieces in place that will probably lead to success if they choose something smart to do, right? And in the grandmaster level, intentional success, you also have the opportunity to develop your unique style, to find that special something that other people will one day want to copy, but they're just not going to understand how you did it. How did you do that? And that's what they're going to ask. So these 4 stages, and for those of you, some of you may know that I'm a martial artist. I don't practice as much as I used to anymore, but I've had a career in martial arts, and I know some of you out there are as well and will recognize some of the words I've used here. In most martial arts, when you earn your black belt, it doesn't mean that you know everything there is to know about the martial art that you have a black belt in. I studied Taekwondo. I have a black belt, 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. When I got my black belt, I was deemed a master of the fundamentals. I understood the basics and how to do them well. I could teach them to other people. Okay. You move on from there through all your belt ranks, and eventually a very, very, very small percentage of people get to the grandmaster level. And these are people who not only understand their discipline, they may understand 3 or 4 disciplines. They probably have created a discipline style of their own that they have taught to other people and elevated people to black belts. That's what we're looking at. That's so similar to how I look at business evolution that I had to share that. So we've got 4 stages here, and let's look at each of them in a little bit more detail. Now, beta, the startup phase. Most of us think that beta is something that just happens for a very short amount of time, and then as soon as we get an office building and we've got some business cards printed, we're off and running and we're a business. And in fact, I've worked with companies who are 20 years old that are still in the beta phase, and they're successful. You can be a very successful beta. Success exists in each one of these phases. At each stage, you can be successful. Okay. We're going to explore the elements of each phase, starting with the mindset. So a beta, a startup, has an opportunistic mindset. So that's what characterizes how they look at things. It's a very simple thing. We're opportunistic. We're going to do outreach. We're going to find an opportunity. We're going to generate a quote. We're going to win a piece of business. We're going to execute it, and then we're going to do it again. We're constantly looking for opportunities, and we're a little bit indiscreet about what those opportunities might be. So we're open to lots of different things. We're going to take opportunity of being in the marketplace and get whatever we can out of it so that we can fund the next day. I call it putting groceries on the table. So the goal of the beta is to continue to have groceries. The roles, the people in here in a startup phase tend to be blended. They tend to do lots of different things. I call it wearing a lot of hats. They sell, they deliver, and fund. If you're a solo entrepreneur, a freelancer, or an independent business person, you do all of the things in your business. Okay? You sell, you deliver, and you fund. Now, the good news is you can run your own business as an individual and be a 3.0 company. Okay? It's not about size. It's about mindset, it's about roles, and it's about process. In the startup phase, the processes tend to be labor intensive because you're doing a broad sell. You haven't refined your processes. You don't have all the tools and resources in place because you never know what you're going to sell next. So once you sell something, you don't automatically build infrastructure so you can sell it again because you're now on to something else. And it sometimes takes months, years, or even decades for a startup to figure out what its business focus actually is so that it can reduce the labor intensity on its processes. And then the fourth thing that I will talk about in each phase is the potential points of failure, PPOF, potential points of failure. For the beta companies, it's the lack of depth. Okay? It's very hard to scale a beta company. You've got blended roles. You're going after a broad swath of business. You often can't do multiple projects at the same time. Your costs tend to be subsidized. In other words, you haven't accumulated all the overhead, but that's subsidizing your overall cost. So if you're working out of your house, that's a subsidized cost. You know, if you're using your personal vehicle for a delivery van, that's a subsidized cost. If you're not paying yourself a salary or paying yourself a reduced salary, or, you know, forcing a relative to work for free or at a low rate, that's a subsidized cost. So these are all points of failure. And of course, the biggest one is always cash flow. Cash flow is very delicate in the startup phase because you don't have consistent revenue there's a spottiness, an inherent spottiness to how money comes in. And when you're busy, you don't have time to sell. Okay? And then you don't have the cash flow coming in. So you have the peaks and valleys. Now, the 1.0 company is the reactive phase. Okay? The mindset is reactive. You have limited resources. You have a lack of filtering. In other words, you're not always sure which business to reject or which opportunity to go for. You tend to price to win rather than price to make money because you don't know where the next job is going to come from. You do a lot of trial and error. You try things. If they don't work, you try something else, you retool, and you never get around to codifying what it is that works for your company. So we react. If something works, we move on. If something doesn't work, we react and change it. If an opportunity comes our way, we jump on it. Very reactive. The roles in a 1.0 company start to evolve. You start to see a distinction in a sales role versus an ops role. Even though it might be the same person doing both jobs, they make a transition between, oh, I'm wearing my sales hat, to, okay, now I'm putting the job together to go out and project manage it. So we start to see processes that define the differences in what people are doing. So there's still going to be lots of overlap. I worked with a small company one time that had 3 owners. They were the only 3 employees, and all of them did sales, all of them did ops, all of them did finance, all of them teched, all of them cleaned toilets. Well, 2 of them did, right? And Um, so there's lots of sharing and overlapping in what they do. And in 1.0 companies, we don't see a lot of anchor positions. An anchor position is somebody who is always at the office, who always mans the mothership. It's easier to explain what not having an anchor looks like. If there's a big project going on and you have no anchors, the office is empty because everybody is out working on the project. I have a client, a company I've worked with for a number of years, who's much better at it, but I'll tell on them, a story from years past. They had 60 employees. If they were busy, this is an event company, a production rental company, if they were busy, there could be as few as 3 people left in the office. So at the time when all their work was going on, all the people are in the field, there was nobody left in the office to actually solve any problems or sell the next job or prep for the next week's work. Okay? That's a reactive business. That business, however, was decades old. So not small, not young. They just had never gotten out of the reactive phase for that particular aspect of their business. 1.0 companies have process that is highly reliant on individual effort. I find what I call the hero syndrome in reactive companies. I find the words "we're holding it together" or "I am holding it together." I find people very protective of the role that they play in the business in terms of process. Let me give you an example. Many times I've found as I'm looking at new clients and looking at organizations, we don't find a dedicated IT person usually until there's 40 or 50 employees. Up until that time, it's often somebody who's doing it as a part-time, as their second or third job in the business. Okay. They were generally unwilling to let go of that responsibility, even though they're the video engineer and they're out on job site 3 weeks out of the month. But when they come back, they'll fix the router. And they can't let anybody else fix it because nobody knows what they're doing because, well, they're the hero. So when I see heroes, I know that I've got a reactive company in terms of process. So the points of failure, the potential points of failure in reactive companies is that they tend to run on constraints. Their growth is often limited because they run out of everything. First thing they run out of is people, long before they run out of technical resources or trucks or vans or hardware. They run out of actual people. Reactive companies have price confusion because their pricing exercises change every time they write a quote. Everything is unique. They don't codify things. They haven't found a standardization that they can live with because every customer is different. Therefore, every opportunity is different. Lack of pipeline processing. That's also very apparent in reactive companies. We build a pipeline by marketing, getting contacts, creating leads, who turn into prospects, who hopefully, turn into opportunities that we're going to convert into real jobs. And in reactive companies, a lot of time a prospect will come our way. They'll call us up, they'll make an inquiry, but we won't follow up. We never get back to them with anything. They didn't ask for anything specific. They didn't send you an RFP. They didn't, talk about a specific job. So they fall off our radar map. That's a lack of pipeline processing. So if we don't have the resources to process pipeline, we're only going to react to the things that look like a real opportunity. And in reactive phase, we still have cash flow problems, but in fact, the cash flow problems become bigger because we have overhead. It's more critical when we don't have cash flow. We can't, it's not one person going and living off his credit card. There's 10 or 15 or 50 employees who are relying on the company to cash flow. Now, level 2, proactive phase, 2.0s, the mindset is proactive. We're starting to click here. We've added some branding. We're going to do some pitches for our prospects. We've grasped the idea of dynamic pricing. We know how to upsell. We look at things in terms of the long sale. We'll talk to somebody about a project that's 2 years from now and they just want to learn more about us. We'll do some cross-selling. If they call for an audio system, we'll talk to them about video systems too. Operations starts to become transformational in terms of identifying, inadequacies in how they're doing things and looking for ways to improve. Right? We're proactive. We're recognizing trends and we're trying to act on them and take advantage of our knowledge. In the proactive company, in the 2.0 company, I start seeing the roles become more compartmentalized. I start seeing a distinction. Instead of one person doing marketing, business development, sales, and project management, I see a marketing role. I see a project management role. I might start to see a business development role when they get to a certain size. I start to see separation in purchasing. This is a big thing. This is a high sign of a 2.0 mindset, is that when purchasing is treated seriously as a profession, and you have people who buy for a living, instead of what I find in some companies is everybody's a buyer. Everybody buys for their own projects, and it's kind of the wild, wild west. In terms of process, 2.0 companies tend to be a little bit more cost focused. They start doing the math. They start looking at what things cost and making decisions, put decision making into the process related to finding the most cost effective way of doing things. It's not that we haven't looked at cost in beta or 1.0, but we've institutionalized it in the proactive phase. And we start to see more consistency in process, and we start to see documentation. Now, points of failure become things like complacency and overconfidence, legacy reactive processes, management, lack of leadership, lack of capital. These become points of failure. So there's a lot of things that can undermine the proactive company that weren't even on the radar map in a 1.0 or beta company. Now, here's the good stuff. What's a 3.0 company look like? The success mindset is that they have full control over trajectory. They know they can go wherever they want to do. They know how to change the direction of the organization. They know how all the moving parts work. So if they want to execute a strategy, they know how the machine needs to change in order to do it. The roles in a 3.0 company, an intentional company, are very clear. We now have career paths. We have process owners. We have well-defined leadership roles. We have communication about strategy and goals for the organization. And then we have the processes that go along with them. And processes are not only clear, they're evolving. Processes change all the time. There's no binder with the process for 2017. The process for 2017 is the process today plus whatever changes we implement by tomorrow. 3.0 companies have a process for process change, and let me tell you, nothing feels better than knowing that you need to change something and have a process for actually making that change so you can make it happen. So whatever problem you identified isn't going to happen again. Points of failure on 3.0 companies. Oh, goodness. Where 3.0s get into trouble is lack of transparency. This usually comes with a breakdown in leadership, but if you stop being transparent about how all of this works, then you get a subset of your organization that doesn't know how to do it. So when there's something goes wrong, they don't know how to fix it. If you choose the wrong strategy, that will undermine a 3.0 company. You go off on a tangent. Now, fortunately, if we have the right leadership and process for process change, we can catch it and fix this. Okay. So, but it is still a potential point of failure. And then short-sightedness. 1.0 companies are reactive. They're by definition short-sighted. Okay, we get a little less short-sighted in 2.0. In 3.0, we got to be looking around the corner. We got to be looking down the road, and we can't overreact to a subtle change along the way. We weigh it, we value it, we make some decisions. But if you start to become short-sighted, you'll quickly become reactive again. Now, the 3.0 experience. What's it like working in a 3.0 company? And I can honestly tell you, I love working for myself. I love being a solo entrepreneur. This is the career for me. I worked in a 3.0 company, and there were days when it was just awesome. Change is easy. If you have franchisable processes, if you have a process that you can define and easily show other people how it works, duplicate it and put it into another office or add another line of business, okay, you're franchisable. Okay? That's the holy grail of business, is to be franchisable. It doesn't mean you're going to go out to the franchise show and sell franchises to your business. It means that you understand it well enough that it's codified and it makes sense so that you can share it, makes it easy to onboard employees. Change is easy in a 3.0 company. Pipelines in a 3.0 company are much more mature, and they feed multiple lines of business. Very few of the organizations that I deal with in the AV industry have only one line of business. Now, some of them think they do, but when we get in there and I start showing them what's going on, they're actually in multiple lines of business. And they don't all have the same customer. But you could have one pipeline that feeds into all these lines of business, and the processes that you use to direct those customers or those potential customers to the right place are well codified. You share processes in a 3.0 company, and you share them seamlessly. There's no, oh, that's a rental job, oh, that's a production job, oh, that's an install job. No, they're all jobs for your organization, and they all get the same treatment. Okay? They may end up in the execution of a different set of people in a different part of the building, but if a process can be shared in the 3.0 experience, they are indeed shared. And then processes are transparent, and I can't emphasize this enough. Okay? If processes are transparent, everybody knows what to do next, and if they don't know what to do next, they know how to find out. And as a matter of fact, they could probably go ask the person next to them who will explain, oh yeah, here's how we do this. And now I've got another person who understands. If you have transparent processes, if something goes wrong, we can troubleshoot. If somehow as an organization we made a mistake, we can troubleshoot. And the first thing that we look at is process. And we determine whether or not the process failed. And if the process failed, we fix the process. But chances are the process didn't fail, it was a human error. And if it was a human error, then we talk to the human and we retrain them, we reintroduce them to the process and make sure they learn from it so they don't make the mistake again. But sometimes we find out that the process did exactly what it was supposed to do, the human did exactly what they were supposed to do, but a mistake still went through because we have a gap in the process. And because it's transparent, we can all talk about it. We talk about it all the time in a 3.0 company. And it's very easy to uncover a gap in the process and go, oh, I guess we never considered that. We never thought that would happen. So why don't we add this step here to the process so it doesn't happen again? And oh, by the way, if we do that, we can actually eliminate this step over here, which we've been talking about trying to fix. Everybody wins. That's the 3.0 experience. There's a lot of stuff on the slide you're looking at right now. I know that. And I'm not going to talk about each one of these boxes. I put this up here because I want you to understand that any size of company, any stage of company, if you're a one-person 1.0 company or a 500-person 3.0 company, you do the same things. You have marketing. You may not have much, but you have marketing. You process opportunities, you process orders, you execute projects, you have an operational system, you have a finance system. All of these things are going on. And they may introduce at different points along the way, but you're going to do all of these things. How well you do them, how mature your processes are, how intentional the things that you're doing, the points of failure that you're allowing yourself to have will determine, at what stage of organization that you're at. So we want to follow an order through your system. And if you're going to assess yourself or have somebody assess you, they follow an order through and see how well we're doing on each of these items. Okay? How are we handling this? Are we shortcutting things? Are we spending enough time on the things which we spend time on, or are we just glossing over them? For instance, if I'm a small company and I'm the owner and I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing business development, I'm calling around trying to drum up some business, and I get an RFP, I'm going to qualify, position, and close by myself. And the qualification is done when I got the RFP. I called the person, I asked them for business, they sent me an RFP, the qualifying is done. Positioning is, I'm going to position myself to win, because it's more important to win than it is to maximize the return on the opportunity, which a 2.0 or 3.0 company might do. And then I'm going to close that business and I'm going to execute it. So I will do all the things that a 3.0 company would do, but I might compress it into beta or 1.0 timelines. Something that 3.0 companies do, and actually all companies do, down here at the bottom, is look at trends. And as we follow an order through a system, and if you do this for yourself and start paying attention to exactly what you do to get business to the end of the line, to get the revenue going into the bank, if you look at all the things that you do, you will notice that you've got about 3 groups of things that generate trends that help you make decisions about how to run your business in the future. Okay? You pick up market trends from the types of leads that come in, the opportunities customers present you. You pick up technical trends by the how you process an order, how you design a system, from the industry, bringing new information into your business. And you learn about resource trends as you execute. What's the cost of labor? What's the availability of labor or trucks or travel or anything else it takes, supplies, hardware technology, rental inventory. You learn about all of these things along the way and you take clues from them, and it helps you plan. 3.0 companies consider this an important part of their business process, examining, understanding, and applying trends into their business. So our 3.0 experience includes this broad overview. Not only can I focus on the micro of getting today's job done and doing this task, but I'm also pulling back and saying, what are we can be using to generate video images 5 years from now? And both of these things, both of these conversations occur in the same day, sometimes in the same breath. That's the wonder of being in a 3.0 company. That's why I get so excited about this stuff. It's so cool to not be solving problems that I had to fix this last week. I had to fix this last month. Doing the same things over and over again, never coming up with a permanent solution. Having employees who didn't learn from the mistake that we made last year on this. 3.0 companies with the transparency and the completeness and the proactiveness and the forward-looking aspects of the business eliminate so many of those things and make it just a pleasure to work in. The 3.0 experience also includes clear roles. Now, the roles may not be the ones you see on the screen here, but you will see a clear sales side. There's even a marketing side. You will see project design and management. You will see operations management, which runs through the entire organization. You'll see accounting and finance management that runs through the entire organization. And you'll have clear, well-defined roles. Now, It may be 5 people, or you may have 500 people that fill out all of these roles. Remember, size doesn't determine whether or not you're a 3.0 company. It's your mindset, it's your roles, it's your process. Another thing that 3.0 companies are really good at, and another thing that makes it so gratifying to work in that environment, is they understand growth profiles. They understand that they have multiple lines of business, and each line of business may have a different growth profile. Now, I've presented growth profiles in other webinars, and I won't go into the long version of all of this. But if I'm doing an assessment of a growth profile of an organization, I look at 2 things. I look at their focus on, do they want more of the same kinds of customers? Are they looking to get new customers? And are they inclined to outsource, or are they disinclined to outsource? And there are no right or wrong answers here. It is who you are, right? If you're a company that leans away from outsourcing and wants to focus on an existing customer base, you tend to be a capacity-focused company. The classic pure rental company is a capacity-focused company. Success is if every single widget is out on rental. Okay? If I run out of widgets, I quit renting. That's capacity-focused. A 3.0 company can be all over this grid depending on the type of business or the business segment they're working on. They can be looking for best fit buyers for their turnkey installation business, but they can be doing expanded offerings for some of their enterprise customers. And if they're willing to process any kind of customer and outsource anything that they don't know how to do or don't have access to, well, they kind of have unlimited growth potential, which is another exciting thing about 3.0 companies. They can convert on almost any opportunity that comes to them. They get to pick and choose. Isn't that awesome? All right. It's usually at this point when I talk about this that people start to feel a little overwhelmed. I go, Tom, I'm hearing all this stuff. It sounds great, but I'm thinking about all the stuff I don't do well. I'm thinking about all the things that we don't have quite right. And I understand that. Here's where we can all take something that 3.0 companies understand and apply it wherever we are in our stage of evolution. The world is full of possibilities. Believe it or not, it is actually a possibility that I could become an astronaut. It's a remarkably remote possibility. It's probably not something I really can do. If you think about it, if I went and took the physical test, I'm not going to pass. So while it's a possibility, I probably couldn't do it. But even if I could, the question is, should I do it? 3.0 companies go through a process, and they can do it very quickly because they understand what they're doing. They understand where their business focus is. They understand what they're trying to accomplish, and they have the right people available to talk about it. They quickly take the possibilities, eliminate the things that they simply could do, talk about the things that they should do, and then focus on the things they will do. We should move into this city. We should open this line of business. We should take on this product line. But a 3.0 company will go, that's all good and fine, but what will I do? What I will do at this point in time is I will take on this product line because we know we will complete it. We know we will apply our 3.0 process and mindset and roles to make it successful. So I'm going to focus on the will do. However, if I should do it, if it really is a should do, then I need to figure out how to close the gap between should and will. And this is what I call the opportunity gap. When you have an opportunity gap, and all of us do, there's 4 elements to it. There's 4 aspects. We have an ability aspect, a capacity, a resource, and a process aspect. One or all of these is affecting our ability to convert should do into will do. And if we examine the opportunity, examine the gap and what the elements of the gap are, it makes it simpler for us to figure out how to accomplish it. If you want to add a new product line, say you decide you haven't been in the media server segment and you're going to move heavily into media servers, that's awesome. That's great. Do that. However, if you don't have the ability to do that, but you have the capacity, you have the resources, you have well-defined codified processes that will allow you to bring in that new product line, then we can say, hey, all we need to move from should to will is acquire the ability. And how are we going to do that? Are we going to train internally, or we're going to hire externally, or we're going to outsource the ability? And that shortens the amount of time it takes to get us where we want to be. 3.0 companies know how to get things done. If you get nothing else out of today, think about all the things that you should do and just focus on the ones you will do. And if you run out of things that you will do, go back and work on the opportunity you have for the rest. So how do we know if we made it? How do we know we've become, the complete small business? What's the end game? What's the upside in all of this? I've studied this, and I look at the companies that are successful, and I found that there's 3 qualities that tell me they've made it. Quality number 1 is they're attractive. I loved being in a 3.0 company because we were very attractive. Buyers, customers wanted to do business with us. They wanted to find a way for us to work together. Employees came to us, people wanted to come work for us. And I always had a stack of resumes, good resumes on the corner of my desk. The bad ones went in the trash. Okay, suppliers were seeking you out. As a 3.0 company, I got preferential treatment from suppliers because they wanted me to use their product, because other people would see us using the product and that would add cachet. That's the power of being attractive. 3.0 companies are steerable. They have ability to choose and alter direction. If they decide to get into a field, they can do it. They can choose it, or they can change the direction of the organization. I worked with a company not long ago who really, they weren't quite a 3.0 company, but they had some 3.0 qualities. And they wanted to get out of the transactional rental business that was part of the company when it was founded 40 years ago. I mean, they still literally had a rental desk that you walked in a warehouse door and there's a guy behind a desk and you did business over the desk. And they wanted to get rid of that business. Because they had the processes and the roles and the mindset, it was very easy to move them out of that business and redirect those energies to things that were more important to them at the time. And then the complete small business is profitable. But it's not just profitable in that, yay, we make money. It's profitable and they know how to make money. They completely understand what makes money. They can predict and control profit. They actually make decisions about sacrificing profit in order to make something else happen faster, because the upside to profit down the road will more than pay for it. I mean, these people know math. Okay? They're not making short-term decisions about profit. But it's a delicate balance. Okay, so if you get to that point where you're attractive, you're steerable, and you're profitable, you've got an intentional success organization, but you're always at risk if you let any one of these 3 things fall off, that you won't just fall back into a diminished 3.0 role. You're going to fall back into reactive on some level. So it's yeah, you're riding high, you're up there at the pinnacle, but the fall down is pretty far. So you work really hard to keep that balance in place. You work really hard to keep that transparency up, to keep leadership in place, so that you don't lose this fantastic position, which is a lot of fun. Now, so that's a whole lot about 3.0 companies, but that's not where most of us are, unfortunately. Most of us are at 1.0 with some 2.0 qualities. We have 3 areas that we can work on to help us move up through the stages, to help us evolve. And it's not, and I'll show you in just a minute, but it's not a big jump movement. You don't go from beta to 1.0 to 2.0 in jump steps. You creep into each one. And as a matter of fact, it's not unusual to have 2.0, have accomplished some 2.0 qualities and still have some beta qualities in play. Okay. So if you want to move, if you're trying to move up, if you're trying to evolve, take a look at the mindset. If you review the mindsets that I just talked about on these stages, the first 3 are obstacle driven. You have to admit what your obstacles are. Okay? You need to know what it is that you have to overcome so that you can shift the mindset. I was having a conversation with a guy who I respect, who's actually quite brilliant about this business, about this industry, but I caught him. I caught him talking about constraints in his sales pipeline, and he used words like new business, salespeople bringing in opportunities that were painful and inconvenient. And I said, wait a minute, that's a 1.0 mindset. Why is that coming out of you? You've got to change that language. You've created an obstacle in your business. If it comes out of your mouth, you just defined it for everyone. Anytime a salesperson brings something in that, doesn't meet how we want to do business today, it's inconvenient, and we shut it down. You're stifling your own growth. We need to make our mindset, yay, we're going to solve a valuable problem for this customer, and we're going to improve ourselves and stretch ourselves and learn from it on the way. That's a mindset change. We have to evolve roles. Anchor positions is a good example. One of the organizations I've worked with, I came in, they had 60 employees, and I told you about this, and I said on a busy day, 57 of them were out on show site. Okay? They had no anchors at all. Today, that same company, even on the busiest day of the year, they still have a full warehouse crew. They have a tech support crew. They have a creative support crew. They have management available. There are salespeople available. There are project managers that can help with jobs that are coming up. All the functions of the business continue even when they're at their most busy. Okay? That's a huge evolution. That takes them strongly into the 2.0 world, when they were all the way down pretty much in beta before then. So we need to establish the anchor positions. We need to get rid of the subsidized roles and pay attention to the roles that we need to run the business that we are today. And you have to undo constraints. You have to learn how to outsource. You got to exercise your line of credit. Leadership is a huge constraint. Matter of fact, if I had a bucket of magic that I could use to help clients, would be ladlefuls of leadership to help business owners and executives and managers learn how to be better leaders. Now, none of us is firmly in one area, unless you're just a startup. You just started your business this month and you're firmly in beta, but you're already working on some 1.0 qualities. And if we look at roles and process, sales, finance, all the things on this list, and we evaluate our individual companies and where we're at in terms of our stages of evolution, you're found that you're probably going to go across 2 or 3 columns. Okay? That's normal. Embrace your dichotomy. But note that whatever's on the farthest to the left represents gravity, and it's pulling you down. This is where you need to put energy. As much as you would like to have a 3.0 sales process, because that just sounds awesome, you need to fix your leadership and policies and control issues that are still back there in the beta phase. So always work from your weakness, knock these things out so that you can allow the company to move forward, because they will pull you back. So I'm going to get to some questions here real quick, and I see you guys have posted some, but please post some more. You know, I look at what owners want. You know, why is this an important conversation for owners and for those of us who want to support them? If I pulled well, I have pulled my my clients. You know, there are 5 things I find that they want. You know, everybody wants great cash flow. We don't want to lose sleep over the bank balance. Everybody wants a profit. You know, because 1, that's how we keep score, and 2, that's how we get a bigger boat. We want to grow. That's another way of keeping score, but also we know that growth is important for maintaining profit and cash flow. But if you get to the heart of it, they would give up all of those things for just having some harmony in their business and being satisfied with what they've accomplished. So working on all of these things, you may achieve all of these things at beta. You may achieve these things for yourself at 1.0 or 2.0. I would certainly expect you would achieve them at 3.0, though some of you are never satisfied. Okay? But focus on what you're really trying to get out of the business. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to take a couple of questions. And one of the first questions I have says, Tom, I think we do a lot of reactive things based on your list. How do we get our sales team to understand how to work together? And he goes into a lot of stuff here. So let me just distill this into the question that we probably all want to know. Hey, Tom, how does this affect sales? The biggest thing we do for sales, and this is fresh in my mind because we did the Jumpstart workshop for sales and marketing a couple of weeks ago, is that you have to understand how sales, marketing, and business development are all intertwined. And for many of you, that extends all the way into project management. Okay, the transparency of process is what usually fails us. If I find an organization that has an us-them conversation going, operations and project management talks about sales in terms of them, and they're always bringing us in, inconvenient jobs, or you didn't sell this correctly, or you didn't ask the right questions. Okay, that's a symptom. The problem is not that the salesperson didn't ask the right questions. The problem is the organization doesn't have an institutional way to approach these things, to approach the selling process that's transparent and allows enough people to participate to eliminate those kinds of concerns. So the study you need is not how do I make one process work, it's how do I change the mindset of the organization that we all win or lose as a team regardless of how the job started. I've got a saying, and you've heard it before, okay? Sales' job is to sell whatever operations can support. Operations' job is to support whatever sales sells. And if you put that on your wall, you hang it on your monitor, and you think about that, okay? One side does not get to reject the other. One side gets to embrace what the other has done and react to it and grow from it and figure out how to deliver. And that's the business that we're in. I've got another question here about following an order through the system. Tom, we recently went through a process exercise where we mapped their words. They mapped all their processes through the systems, and we wrote a document, and we figured out the right way to do things. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here because it's a long question. How can we use that to get us out of the reactive phase and get us into a proactive phase? Okay. So you've started some of the work to understand how your business currently works, and now you see the opportunity to grow this, to evolve your business. Go back to that chart that I had up here a couple times ago, this one here, and take all those processes and put them in the vertical column and go across the horizontal column and rate yourself on those things. Find the stuff on the left, and then start with the things that will either one of the easiest to accomplish or will have the most impact. Going back to the should do, will do, focus on the items that you will do. Okay, and then close the gaps on the items that you should do until you can clear those items. So again, always start from the left. It gives you some clear direction. It will, if you don't do those things, I'll talk about that in just a minute, you're going to create a lot of noise that's going to keep you from evolving as a company. And I see I'm running out of time here, so I want to move on, but you are always welcome to email me more questions. I'm happy to answer them. Before I wrap up, I want to thank our sponsors once again. You guys know who you are. You make a huge difference. We all appreciate it. Thank you. This is the fourth of 6 webinars this year, the Complete Small Business. In October, we're going to do the Changing Marketplace. I'm going to talk about things that are going on in the industry, how it will affect your crystal ball or might affect your crystal ball as you look at 2018. This will be an interesting one because this is, I don't often talk about my views of how all the trends in the industry affect us and what we need to pay attention to and what we need to ignore. This is a rare chance to hear me talk about things I generally only talk about after 2 or 3 glasses of wine. And then in December, we're going to talk about what your numbers tell me and why. This will help you finalize your budgets for 2018, give you some targets to work on. Your numbers tell me a lot about your business. I'll explain how my process works when I look at somebody's financials and what I learn out of it. So to wrap up today, the Complete Small Business, we need to remember that your business can be in many phases at once. You can have some beta 1.0, 2.0s, and the more spread out you are on the chart, the more conflict you're going to have. Your well-refined processes are going to be in conflict with your less refined ones. It's going to create a lot of noise for you. That's why it's important, I believe, to work from the left, clear those things out, try and compress, ideally we'd love to move from a 1.0 to 2.0, but let's get rid of the betas first, and then let's clear out the 2.0s because then, or 1.0s, because then we'll have some 2s and some 3s to work on, all right? Everybody's business has something that's keeping them from elevating. I told the story earlier about this business manager, talking about inconvenient new opportunities. Okay, that's what's keeping him, among other things, from elevating his business, from growing the business, as he's built in a mindset that limits growth. Find out what's keeping you from elevating your business, and then focus on upgrading one thing at a time. Just because you have 3 things in beta you need to clear out, you will have more success if you'll focus on one at a time. Okay, take one will do, complete it, move on to the next. You have a business to run. You can't devote all of your energy to this evolution. That's why it's called evolution. So next steps, if you're stuck on what to do next, give me a call. Go to my website. I've got a tool here. We can schedule an introductory conversation. It looks at in my calendar, so we can schedule a time to visit. I'm happy to spend as much time with you as you need. I'm very generous with that time. It's actually one of the favorite parts of my job, so don't hesitate to make an appointment. I'd love to talk to you. Now, some additional content that you might want to look at, webinars. I'll go to avmatters.com or trstimson.com. What is a healthy company? Wearing too many hats, very important webinars on this topic. There's some articles, Business Progress 1.0, which talks about the stages. The 5-minute business diagnostic, I didn't talk about it here today, but it's very relevant to this conversation. I started to list some podcasts, and I realized that most of my podcasts, and the podcast series is called The Wake Up Call, and it is on iTunes, or you can get to it on my website, talk about things that apply to what our conversation today is. And then I've got several video series on my website. You can find them in the store at trstimson.com. Look at the descriptions there. A lot of them talk about putting all of this together. So I want to thank you all again for being with me today. We will get this recording up for you. We'll get the handouts up there on av-matters.com, and those should be up hopefully by the end of the day, if not first thing in the morning. Thank you for your attention, and good luck evolving your business.